Our top stories tonight: the SACP sharply criticises the ANC, urging the governing party to resolve its perceived factionalism issues. Slain SACP and ANC members are laid to rest amid continuing tensions between the tripartite partners in KZN. This is eNews Direct Weekend Edition. Good evening.
You can comment on any of our stories by following us on Facebook and Twitter at eNews Direct.
Or you can check our content on our website enca.com/direct. The SACP has levelled some of its strongest criticism of tripartite alliance partner, the ANC, since Jacob Zuma became the movement's president in 2007. The Communists argue the governing party is so divided that an early elective conference would result in another breakaway. Instead, they're calling for a conference to thrash out all issues and chart a way forward for the ANC, the tripartite alliance and the country.
That there is growing impatience within the ranks of the SACP about how allies and SACP are treated.
Tired but not submissive. The SACP wants the ANC to own up to its problems and get back on course. And it thinks the best way is through a consultative conference, not an elective conference, which the ANC Youth League is calling for.
We are not saying that there will be a split if the consultative conference doesn't happen. But what we are certain about is that if we are going to go to the ANC to the 2017 conference for a shootout and one faction wins over the other, that will have hugely negative impact. I think it's time we say, let's all grow up, and outgrow factionalism.
The Reds also weighed in on the Pravin Gordhan and Hawke standoff. They claim state institutions are being used to victimize Gordhan so that parasites can feed off the state. They're adamant, even if the 7 senior SACP cabinet members face the chop for their frankness, so be it.
If there are forces that fear us and would like us to be dispatched, we wear that as a badge of honor and not as something that we're scared of, and we will accept the consequences.
The MPA has confirmed it's received a docket relating to the so-called rogue unit at SARS, but that a decision on whether to prosecute has not been taken.
Some strong words from the SACP, but will they lead to any action? And will that action provide further proof of factions within the tripartite alliance and within the ANC itself? Nicolaus Bauer, Ekurhuleni.
Meanwhile, the SACP continued its assault on the ANC during the funeral services for 2 people killed in Nchanga, KwaZulu-Natal. SACP National Deputy Chairperson Thulas Ngesi said the ANC has become its own enemy. He told mourners that internal divisions and factions are destroying the governing party. The SACP's Nontsikelelo Blose was shot dead a week ago. It's claimed Blose was targeted because she was due to testify in the case against those accused of murdering a fellow SACP member ahead of the elections. A day later, ANC member Xolani Ngobo was shot dead in an alleged revenge attack. It's believed the violence is related to tensions between the Communist Party and ANC. KwaZulu-Natal Safety MEC Mxolisi Kahunda says progress has since been made to stabilize Nchanga. A heavy police presence remains in the area. The NPA has confirmed it's received a docket relating to the so-called rogue unit at SARS. The Hawks handed it in this week after concluding its probe into the alleged role of Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and 3 former SARS officials in the setting up of the unit. This relates to Gordhan's time as the commissioner of SARS. This week, he refused to appear before the Hawks after taking legal advice. However, NPA spokesperson Luvuyo Mfako says the decision on whether to prosecute has not been taken. He dismissed reports that Gordhan may also be charged with corruption in the coming days. ANC member Nonhlanhla Mthembu has been laid to rest in Johannesburg. Mthembu died after collapsing during proceedings at a Johannesburg council meeting last week. ANC Gauteng leader Paul Mashatile addressed mourners at a funeral. He urged supporters to break the cycle of silence regarding issues facing the party, saying some of the election losses were self-inflicted.
An emotional time for family and friends, bidding farewell to dedicated ANC member Nonhlanhla Mthembu, affectionately known as Stompie.
This is the only lady that was part of our unit underground, and we launched the last MK operation in this country in Bloemfontein.
Whilst on the podium, speakers also raised some of the issues facing the African National Congress in Johannesburg.
Maybe losing Johannesburg, losing Tshwane, losing Nelson Mandela happened at the right time. Before we go into the policy conference, before we go into the national conference, because it enables us to understand what is at stake in this country.
Provincial Chairperson Paul Mashatile says the message from the voters is very clear. They are unhappy. Mashatile also commended Pakstau on a job well done in running the city during his tenure.
The fact that you have lost Johannesburg is not your fault. We know that you have done well. I think it is us in the ANC who let you down.
The ANC provincial leadership has also thanked Stombi's family for sharing her with the ANC. Tembe was laid to rest at the West Park Cemetery.
Namhlanje Stombi Mthembu has been hailed as a fighter who soldiered on until the end, and the ANC in Gauteng says it will use her legacy to fight for the city. And while they may have lost the battle to govern the city of Johannesburg, they say they've not lost the war, and leader Paul Mashatile has vowed to fight back. Sikelelwa Mdingi, West Park Cemetery in Johannesburg.
Moving on to international news, at least 35 civilians have been killed in 2 airstrikes as Turkey's operations in the Syrian conflict expand. The Turkish military said today its airstrikes in northern Syria killed 25 Kurdish militants on the 5th day of a 2-pronged cross-border campaign targeted at Islamic State and Kurdish militia. Turkey wants to prevent Kurdish fighters from gaining a strip of territory along its border. This would be a huge boost to the PKK, a banned Kurdish rebel group fighting for autonomy. Italy's top anti-mafia prosecutor has warned authorities to ensure the mafia is blocked from playing any role in reconstruction after Wednesday's devastating earthquake. Franco Roberti said organized crime had been notorious for infiltrating construction contracts since the 1980 Irpina earthquake near Naples, also contributing to faulty construction. Wednesday's quake in central Italy killed at least 291 people and left a number of historical towns in ruins. Thousands of firefighters are still battling to control large blazes in the U.S. state of California. Over the weekend, high winds fueled the fire to expand to around 52 hectares within the space of just a few hours. More than 4,000 fires have been reported across the state already this year, and experts are warning the situation could get worse before it gets better. September is usually the hottest month of the year in the Golden State and kicks off 3 months that are typically the most active for wildfires. More than 11,700 firefighters were battling 9 large blazes in the state on Thursday. And the streets of Paris were ablaze with color this weekend as local Hindus celebrated Ganesh Chaturthi. This is the 4th day of a 10-day festival celebrating the birth of the elephant-headed god Ganesh, known to represent prosperity and good fortune. There have been recent calls to celebrate the festival around the world in a more eco-friendly manner by ending the modern way of making Ganesh idols of plaster of Paris and returning to the traditional method using clay. For these stories and more, go to enca.com/direct or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at eNews Direct. Up next, artists and inventors showcase a world of creation and innovation at the Mini Maker Faire in Cape Town. Welcome back. Cape Town looks poised to becoming a major player in innovation. This comes after the second Cape Town Mini Maker Faire was held over the weekend. The annual event draws a large number of makers looking to showcase their handiwork.
a place for innovators and makers. This is the second annual Cape Town Mini Maker Fair, part of a global initiative that showcases invention and creativity.
Ultimately, making is evidence of learning. So when you can make something different, but we also want to see the flop. So many people, we don't want to see that perfect product. We want to see the process and the hands that make it.
It's a diverse gathering of creatives, innovators, artists, and tech enthusiasts with over 60 exhibitors showing off their wares. From wood bending and a drone flying arena to rapidly made ice cream produced with liquid nitrogen, visitors had the chance to interact with exhibitors and their concepts. A concrete creation competition where competitors stood to win big also wowed the crowds.
Winners in each category get 50,000 Rand, runner-ups get 15,000 Rand, and the overall winner gets 100,000 Rand, which is great money to, of course, to launch your career, maybe to start your own studio.
Organizers say this year's event was a roaring success and served to link participants with potential investors. Zahir Davids, an exhibitor who modifies bikes, was quick to agree.
The more exposure, obviously, the better the business. So yeah, if there's more events like these, there's more opportunities to network and possibly cut that $1 million deal, you know.
Organizers say events like these could help position Cape Town as the leading city in tech and innovation in South Africa. Bonga Dulane, Cape Town.
Up next, Candice with your weather outlook.
It's been a sizzling hot day over parts of the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. In contrast, we've seen cloudy and cool weather in the mother city. Here's a webcam which faces Table Mountain, showing that fog which has settled in for much of the day, as well as some high cloud overhead. We're expecting a similar day on Monday, especially as a low pressure makes its way along the coast. That brings in the possibility of fog along the western and southwestern coastline, especially in the first part of the day. Berg winds result in a hot day over the southern part of South Africa, with sunny and warm weather continuing over the rest of the country. Here's a look at your weather forecast at the start of the work week. With sunny and hot weather for KwaZulu-Natal, you'll see highs in the mid-30s for Pietermaritzburg and Ulundi, with a high of 28 degrees for Durban. A slightly cooler day for the Eastern Cape, but still warm for East London at 29 degrees, 33 for Mthatha, Bishu and Grahamstown, with a bit of cloud expected in the second part of the day. Berg winds results in a hot day for George and Oudtshoorn, both at 34 degrees. High cloud extends throughout the Western Cape, with the possibility of morning fog for Cape Town and a high of 21. We're expecting a high fire danger warning over the interior part of the Northern Cape. Uppington with a sunny day at 33 degrees. Fine and warm for the Free State with highs in the upper 20s, and there's very little change to the weather for the northwest. 28 for Mahikeng and Rustenburg, with fine and dry conditions throughout the province. Sunny throughout Limpopo, 32 for Lephalale and Messina, 10 and 28 for Polokwane, 31 degrees for Bombela and Umkhondo, with a sunny day throughout Mpumalanga. And in Gauteng, we're expecting a sunny start to the work week, 27 for Johannesburg and Soweto, and Pretoria just shy of 30 degrees. On Tuesday, we're expecting another dry day across South Africa with that high cloud over the western and southern parts, and we're expecting temperatures to remain warm. By Wednesday, that sizzling hot weather spreads through to the Eastern Cape again, but things remain cool for Cape Town at a partly cloudy 20. That's all from the Weather Centre for now. Have a great night.
A recap of your top stories now before we say goodnight. The SACP sharply criticises the ANC, urging the governing party to resolve its perceived factionalism issues. It's calling for a consultative conference to chart a way forward for the ANC, the tripartite alliance and the country. Slain SACP and ANC members are laid to rest amid continuing tensions between the tripartite partners in KZN. And that's a wrap from the eNews Direct team.
Up next, Sunday night's comedy with Modern Family.
To share your views, you can send an email to enewsdirect@etv.co.za.
Or you can chat to us on Twitter and Facebook at eNews Direct.
Have a great start to your new week. eNews Direct back on its weekday slot at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. From the team, a very good night.